Hello again everyone, welcome back to the channel. Now this week I wanted to pick up one of my older series, What the Romans Introduced to Britain, and I thought I would have a look at entertainment. It should be said though that before the Romans arrived, Britain was not entirely joyless. People sang, told stories, feasted together, marked seasonal celebrations and celebrated victories and harvests. Entertainment already existed, but it was local, communal, informal and rooted in oral tradition rather than stone and spectacle. What the Romans introduced to Britain was not leisure itself, but a new way of organising it. They brought permanent entertainment spaces, fixed calendars of games and festivals, and the idea that leisure could be public, architectural and political. In Roman Britain, entertainment became something you went to, something provided by the state, the army or local elites, and something that quietly taught people how to be a Roman. Roman entertainment was not one thing. It ranged from blood-soaked spectacle to quiet board games scratched in stone. It took place in theatres, amphitheatres, bathhouses, streets, taverns and private homes. Some forms were rare and expensive, whilst others were everyday, almost invisible. But taken together, they reshaped how free time was spent in Britain. And to understand Roman entertainment in Britain, we need to start with the most visible and imposing structure of them all, the theatre. Purpose-built theatres were a Roman import. Before the conquest, Britain didn't really have any stone theatres, certainly not in the Mediterranean sense. No tiered seating, no permanent stages for drama or performance. By the 2nd century AD, however, that all changed. At Verulamium, modern St Albans, a large theatre was constructed around 140 AD. Uniquely in Britain, it was a true stage theatre rather than a simple arena, and it could hold up to 2,000 spectators and hosted a wide range of performances. And these weren't limited just to drama. Roman audiences preferred variety. Comedies, musical performances, mime, recitations, farce and spectacle. Mime in particular was hugely popular, often bawdy, physical and accessible even to those with limited Latin. Early on, Verulamium's theatre was used for more violent entertainments, armed combat, wrestling, animal displays. Later on, a stage was added, suggesting a more formal change to theatrical performances. Other theatres existed across Roman Britain, often attached to major towns, and their presence tells us something important. Theatre was part of urban Roman identity. It belonged to towns, and it reinforced the idea of a shared civic culture. Attending the theatre was not simply about being entertained. It was about being seen, knowing where you sat, and understanding your place in Roman society. If theatre represented performance and culture, amphitheatres represented power. Roman amphitheatres were built for spectacle, and Britain had more of them than is sometimes assumed. Major examples include the ones at Caerleon, Chester and Silchester, and they're often associated with legionary fortresses and important towns. The amphitheatre at Caerleon, built around 90 AD, could seat around 6,000 people. Chester's amphitheatre, which was the largest in Britain, could seat up to 8,000 people. These were not minor structures, these were statements. Here the Romans staged gladiatorial combat, animal hunts and executions. These events were expensive, logistically complex and carefully controlled. Gladiators in Britain were not a constant presence. They were rare, costly and often imported. Britain did not have a permanent gladiatorial industry like Rome or Capua, but they did exist. At Chester, a carved stone shows a net fighter armed with trident and dagger, clear evidence that gladiatorial games were staged there. Elsewhere, inscriptions and burials hint at fighters who lived and died far away from the Mediterranean world where their tradition began. Executions formed part of the spectacle too. Criminals and prisoners could be killed publicly, sometimes as entertainment and sometimes as a warning. Justice and spectacle weren't necessarily two separate concepts in the Roman world. These events were not simply violent diversions. They were ritualised displays of order, reminding spectators who held power, who enforced the law, and who controlled life and death. But not all Roman entertainment was grand or brutal. Much of it was small, personal, and familiar. Across Roman Britain, archaeologists have found dice, gaming counters, and boards scratched into wood or stone. Board games were everywhere, in forts, towns, and personal houses. Dice games were popular too, and often involved gambling. Gambling was officially restricted a lot of the time, but it was widely practiced, and during festivals it was openly permitted. Children played as well. At Vindolanda, archaeologists discovered a small wooden toy sword, a child's imitation of military life, and even a leather toy mouse, probably once dragged across a floor on a string. These objects are easy to overlook, but they matter. They remind us that Roman Britain was lived in by families, not just soldiers and officials. One of the most important spaces for everyday entertainment was the bathhouse. Bathing was not simply about hygiene. It was a social ritual, a daily routine, and a cornerstone of Roman identity. Many major towns and forts in Britain had baths. Some were modest, whilst others were monumental. At Caerleon, the legionary baths included a swimming pool, exercise yards, and of course the heated rooms. Soldiers trained, bathed, talked, and relaxed there. Civilians, of course, did the same in the towns. A visit to the baths including exercise, conversation, gossip, business, and relaxation. Vendors would sell food, massage and grooming were common. People met friends, made deals, and passed the time. Baths were entertainment without spectacle, communal, habitual, and deeply Roman. Entertainment in Roman Britain, however, was not evenly distributed. Access depended on where you lived, who you were, and what status you held. Urban populations and soldiers probably got the most entertainment, with rural communities experiencing less formal entertainment and probably retained many local traditions alongside the new Roman ones. Seating at theatres and amphitheatres reflected hierarchy, the best seats being reserved for elites and officials, the rest having to sit further back, and some people would have opted out entirely. Roman writers talk about noise, crowds, and excess. Entertainment was popular, but not universal, and yet its impact was lasting. Roman entertainment was not just about fun, it was about teaching people how to live in the Roman world. Theatres encouraged shared culture, amphitheatres displayed power, baths created daily habits, games filled idle hours, and festivals structured time. Together, they reshaped Britain's social landscape. By attending Roman entertainment, Britons learned how to stop work, where to gather, and how to behave in public, and what it meant to belong to the empire. Entertainment in Roman Britain was Romanisation in action, not forced, not always welcome, but deeply influential. And long after the last gladiator fought, the last bath cooled, and the last festival ended, the idea that leisure could be public, communal, and structured endured. The Romans didn't just conquer Britain, they taught it how to use its free time. But thank you very much for watching. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. It helps immensely, and I'll see you on the next one. Ciao for now.